The story. TLDR. My marriage has been not great for me for a long time. I accused her of cheating, which kind of shocked her into putting in a lot more effort. She's turned it around, but my doubts and resentment are inhibiting me from fully loving my wife. My long story below. My wife and I had been suffering from a semi-dead bedroom for a long time. When we had sex, it was okay. But then we would go weeks without sex. Often it was only 1 or 2 times a month. I would get turned down often. We had many talks, some of them very emotional about it. She would promise to change, and things would get better for a while, but then things would go right back to where they were. But it wasn't just sex that was missing. It was intimacy. I distinctly remember getting a haircut in Japan, and the woman did a quick scalp massage afterward. I remember being surprised by how nice it felt to be touched like that. Then I realized that I hadn't been touched like that by my wife in a long time. She always said it was because she was just so stressed out all the time between working and the kids. So I tried to take as much off her plate as I could. I started doing all the dinners and grocery shopping. I became the primary driver of the kids to sports, etc. Nothing changed. Then I started seeing the signs. She was distant, with low affection, peck kisses, low interest in family, more interest in how she looked, putting on makeup more, and working late. She is a teacher. Then I noticed weird signs. She changed the passcode on her phone. I discovered it when I picked it up for something random. We share everything, so it wasn't unusual to use each other's phones. She gave me the password right away and said she changed it because the kids figured it out. But it was just weird, you know. And she didn't enable her car to read her texts out loud, which is something she always liked about my car before she got the new one. But what really bothered me was her absolute lack of effort for big events. Mother's Days were elaborate. Homemade poached eggs and strawberry waffles in bed, picnics to every botanical garden within 100 miles of our home. Father's Days were meh. On our 20th anniversary, I surprised her with a trip to Paris and a diamond necklace. I started planning and saving for it the day after our 10th anniversary. I worked with her boss to schedule her time off and ensure she had a substitute. A week before our 20th, she said she still didn't know what she was going to get me. She did almost nothing for my retirement after 25 years in the military. I became convinced she was cheating on me, and once I got that in my head, it just wouldn't leave. I kept it to myself, but I was slowly dying inside. One day she had to work on Saturday, new parents. She got all made up. Then she called me from work and told me she was going to meet an old girlfriend for lunch afterward. I drove to the restaurant and camped out, and then she came out with her girlfriend. She didn't see me, but I was ashamed for having doubted her. But I still felt like something wasn't right. I got to go to Hawaii for a work trip and we decided to make a mini vacation out of it. I figured that this was our chance to reconnect, away from the stress of our daily lives. After the second time she turned me down for sex, I finally lost my temper. I blurted out, "Are you having an affair?" She appeared shocked and then she cried, but she swore up and down no. When we got back, she went to intensive counseling. I thought that was weird since I finally agreed to marriage counseling, but she said that she needed intensive counseling first. Almost immediately, everything changed. She became crazy intimate and crazy sexual, and it didn't seem forced. She touched my arm at dinner one night, and I was amazed at how nonchalantly flirty it was. I was like, where has this been for the last 10 years? I thought it might be the Zoloft she had started taking, but it turns out that Zoloft actually reduces libido. It honestly felt like she was love bombing. It felt like to me that she had been caught and was trying to fix things. One other thing I would like to mention. One day a couple of years ago, my wife mentioned that she rode with a guy parent, we'll call him B, on one of the field trips. She works in a private school, so they rely on parent volunteers for field trips. She talks about how nice the guy is, and how she thinks he and I would get along. I tell her that I am uncomfortable with her driving with male parents, and I ask her to avoid doing so if possible. She agreed. One of her coworkers was once really aggressive in trying to have an affair with me, and I built real barriers to limit our interaction. I would never tell my wife, but I was really tempted by the coworker. My wife felt it was fair for her to do the same thing. A year later, we were at a school picnic, and she introduced me to the same guy B and his wife S. Over the last year, our daughters had become best friends. But the energy was just weird. He was really awkward towards me, which I felt was odd since we both had military backgrounds, but he seemed comfortable talking to my wife, and my wife, who is pretty shy, seemed comfortable talking to him. Big red flag for me. Then I found out he was a firefighter. My wife has a thing for firefighters. Then I found out from my daughter that his station is literally within walking distance of my house. Alarms are going off big time. Again, no personal emails, no texts. 1, 2 emails about schoolwork. I remain silent but vigilant. One day when S&B's daughter is being dropped off at my house for a playdate, I spy through our Ring doorbell the interaction between B and my wife. How crazy is that? I wanted to see how they interacted when I wasn't around. Nothing weird. He actually didn't even get on the porch. But then again, it's obvious we have a ring. See how my mind is spinning? Then this year B and S withdrew their daughter from the school. Awesome, I think. Now my wife has absolutely no reason to see him at all. Then my mom asked my wife to start a Girl Scout troop. My wife tells me she is going to ask S to help since S and B are experienced campers. The thought of B being on a camping trip with my wife is just something I can't stand. Later, after a good day, and after everything blows up and is getting better, I tell her my concerns and ask her to cut them out of our lives. She has asked me to cut out a few ex-girlfriends that I had remained friends with, and I did it willingly. I felt it was fair for me to ask the same thing. I must say, I was a bit disappointed in her response. She said it felt like I didn't trust her, and she was sad to cut out 2 of the only parents that supported her in her first year at that school. I guess I was hoping she would say, "Sure, honey." A couple of days later, she agreed to do it, but I relented, mostly because I didn't want my daughter to lose her best friend. My wife now tells me every time she sees B, due to their son still being at my wife's school, but not in her class. My wife has refused to drop off my daughter at their house and instead sends me, so I guess it's okay. But I still remember the weird energy my wife and B had at that school picnic. And I am resentful that that energy wasn't being directed at me at a time when it was missing in our relationship. She has continued to swear up and down that there has never been anyone else. She even had me go to a session with her therapist so that I could maybe understand why she had been so closed off. And I have found nothing. I consider myself pretty tech-savvy, but I have found nothing suspicious. No text messages, no weird phone records, no emails, no weird locations, nothing. But she is a pretty smart girl too, so I'm unsure what this proves. The fact remains that I feel like she cheated on me. I feel it in my core, and it is killing me. The attention now is great, but I am so resentful, and it is growing. We attended my buddy's military retirement last week, and his wife did so much for him. It really triggered all those negative feelings I had from before. I'm just so hurt and angry, and I can't come to grips with the fact that I won't ever really know for sure. To be honest, she told me that she feels like she is suffering from having to regain my trust, even though she never cheated. I just can't go on like this. I feel like I deserved better, and I'm disappointed in myself for putting up with so much for so long. I had made up my mind to leave after the Hawaii incident, but didn't tell her. Seeing the work she has put in made me stay. But now I don't know if it's enough, or maybe it's too little, too late. But it would also be ridiculous for me to split up our family over actions she did over the last decade when she's making so much of an effort now. Update 1. Things got a little worse after my last post. First, I caught my wife in a lie. A lie over something so inconsequential that it was comical that she would even lie about it in the first place. The one thing that was helping me get over all our issues was that I didn't think my wife was a good liar. I truly thought that she could never look me in the eye and flat out lie. I was wrong. I called her out immediately with pretty inarguable evidence, but she just dug her heels in more. I was flabbergasted. I actually had a panic attack one day while driving thinking about it. I was a combat Navy pilot who flew in every conflict since 9/11, and this is what gave me a panic attack. Crazy. I finally sat her down and explained how this lie was affecting me. I tell her that if she can lie about the little things, then she can lie about the big things. She finally admits the little lie, but the damage is done. Now that I know she can look me in the eye and lie, I'm wary about everything she says. Jump forward a couple of weeks. My wife starts acting distant and preoccupied, just like she did right before I was convinced she was having an affair. I'm worried about her, so I try to be extra nice and helpful. One day, she needs to take a bunch of stuff to her school. She's a teacher at a private school. The stuff is in heavy boxes, and it's actually her birthday. so I volunteer to drive the stuff over in my car and bring them in for her. She says that it would make more sense for me to just give her a ride too. So we drove together, but the whole time she was cold and acting nervous. Small things like fidgeting with her hands and not making eye contact. I'm trying not to take it personally. We get to the school and we walk in together with me carrying one box. I drop it off and head out to get the other box, and she goes to walk with me. I tell her she can stay there. I'll get the box. I mean, that was the whole point of my coming. She looks really uncertain and a little annoyed for a moment, but ends up staying in her classroom. I walk out of the school and guess who is just hanging around? The guy B is the one guy in my wife's life I have always been suspicious about. Oh, did I mention that my wife made herself up super pretty that day? Surely this is just a coincidence, right? B had to drop off his younger kid at the school, but he could have done it from the car like every other parent. My wife was the one who suggested riding together. But why was she so nervous for such a routine drive? Surely she wanted to look pretty for her birthday, but man, it was the most effort I've seen her make in a long time. This is what the specter of infidelity and gaslighting does to a person. It makes them question everything, all the time, even their own sanity. I swallow my insecurities and things get better. One day out of the blue, I had a dream that reminds me of what my wife said to me during one of our lowest points. But before I accused her of cheating, I was watching her get dressed one morning, and she caught me. She says, "I appreciate you looking at me, but sometimes it's just too much." I did not and still do not know how to take that. I find her sexy. I want her to know that I find her sexy, even after 24 years. It wasn't like I was making comments or being rude. I was just watching my wife get dressed. I bring this up to her, but she denies ever saying it. But she goes overboard in love-bombing me the next day, which only makes me even more suspicious about what was going on in her head at the time. Once again, I tell myself I am crazy and move on. Things get really good by the holidays. But today, after some really good sex, she asked me if I'm going to Hawaii soon, for work. I say yes, but I don't know when. She asks, "It's not this week, is it?" I say no, why? Then she kind of stutters and yammers for an uncomfortable moment. In my head, I'm thinking, why is she asking if there isn't some sort of conflict? But I don't say anything. She finally says that it is parent education night at her school. Parents of kids who have graduated come back to tell prospective parents what to expect. Of course, B's oldest daughter was a graduate of my wife's school, so of course he will be there. So now I'm thinking she's trying to figure out when I will be out of town. And of course, she watches Emily in Paris, which is just full of infidelity. But of course it all works out in the end because they are chasing their true loves. This is where I'm at. Please tell me I'm crazy. Please tell me I can trust her. I just want to be happy and to trust my wife and live happily ever after. But I am slowly losing my mind. I'm trying to hold it together for my family and everyone that depends on me. But I feel like I'm slowly breaking apart on the inside. Update 2. Christmas 2022 rolls around. We have had this tradition of going to the Santa breakfast at the local firehouse, but my youngest is already 10 and does not believe in Santa. My 2 oldest are in HS. The kids absolutely do not want to go. And of course, since B works at that firehouse, I'm not keen on going either. In fact, no one is sure if it is still going on because it had been canceled for a couple of years due to COVID. So I'm like, cool, out of sight, out of mind. But my wife showed me one day an email from B with a picture of a flyer showing the times the Santa breakfast was happening. Ugh, I just want this guy out of my life. The worst part of the email is the fact that it is very obvious that the email is a continuation of a previous discussion. But there were no other previous emails when I checked her phone later. Big red flag for me, but I'm trying to be cool. We went to breakfast. I never see B. I do notice my wife keeps looking around like she's looking for someone. But I kind of am too, since I'm looking for other neighbors we might know. Of course, none of them are there because their kids are too old. But I digress. I ended up having to leave early due to coaching, but I figured my teen boys being around would limit any interactions. I have no idea if B showed up or not later. Finally, around February, I just can't take it anymore. I told her flat out that I was really disappointed in her reaction when I asked her to cut B out of our life. I told her that even though she had agreed to a soft cutout, her original anger and refusal upset me. I had done a lot of growing since the previous year, thanks almost solely to this website and some Reddit subs, and I think she sensed my seriousness. She apologized, promised me nothing was or had happened, and agreed to cut B and his family out. After that, it was really obvious that my wife started trying really hard. Unfortunately, I was hurt and bitter, so while I was loving on the outside, I was incredibly angry on the inside. She really thought we were on the right path, but I was starting to think that I could not get over all the hurt, and for the first time, wondered if the relationship would last. I realized that if she was trying, I should too. I started intensive counseling. I don't think he helped much, but it did give me a chance to say things out loud. Getting my thoughts and feelings instead of bottling them up took a great weight off my shoulders. Who'd thought? I started feeling better, but I was still having trouble forgiving. The therapist asked us for a joint session. Not really a marriage counselor, since he didn't give advice or anything. He just asked questions and pretty dispassionately took notes. The funny thing is that after that session, things got so much better. It's like my wife became a whole new person. Agreeable, loving, passionate. And it was the little things. Like one time she was in my home office talking to me. When she left, she picked up a dirty plate that was on my desk and took it to the kitchen. You may laugh, but this was uncharacteristic. It went on like this for about a month. Just the happiest I've ever been in my marriage. I had a couple more IC sessions and said I felt like I graduated. The therapist agreed. Then, a week later, we are watching Season 1, Episode 3 of Black Mirror, The Entire History of You. No one who visits this website should watch. Anyway, infidelity is the main plot point. The whole episode is triggering, but one scene really gets me. The husband comes to a party unexpectedly. When he walks in, he sees his wife talking to another guy. The wife is all giggly and warm, but when she realizes her husband is there, she gets cold. It's a sci-fi show, so the guy has this moment recorded, and he keeps playing the difference between her faces when she's talking to the husband versus this seemingly random guy. It hit home. This is exactly how I felt with my wife and B. This fictional character's pain was my pain. All the negativity I felt before came screaming back. All my progress was negated. I didn't want to ruin the awesomeness of the last few months, but it was eating me alive. I told my wife that I was emotionally affected by the episode. She was very understanding, but it did take a little off the high we were riding. And I can't get it out of my head. Then, because the universe hates me, the next day B's wife, S, texts my wife suggesting they should set up a playdate. My wife showed me immediately. I just roll my eyes. A day later, I asked her if she had texted S back yet. She says no. I tell her to go ahead. I tell her that intellectually I'm okay, but that my emotions are a work in progress. We talked about B again, and she reassured me that nothing was ever going on. I asked her if B ever ended up substituting at her school. Oh yes, I forgot that part. He volunteered to be a substitute teacher. To be fair, my wife showed me immediately when she found out. She says she doesn't know. Then she says it doesn't matter because B and S are pulling their son out of the school anyway. When I asked why, she gave me the details. Cool, I think. That night, around 4 a.m., I woke up with dread. 1. How is it possible to not know if B ever substituted? It's a tiny school. 2. How did she know so many details about why the son was leaving if she was not in contact? I confronted her gently the next night. She has pretty realistic explanations. But honestly, I keep thinking about that inconsequential lie she told me and how convincing she would have been if I didn't have ironclad contrary proof. Long post just to say that I'm a hot mess. Things are still good between us, but I fear that they are sliding back to normal. And I fear that there is too much hurt in me to let go. I really thought I was doing okay, but one TV episode just blew everything up inside. Thank you for reading. Update 3. My full post history is in my profile, but for a recap, my wife became distant and cold and withdrew from the family slowly over 5, 7 years. We had a dead bedroom, 2x this month. I slowly became convinced she was having an affair. Things came to a head in November of 2020. I accused her of having an affair, 97% certain she didn't now. Internally, I decided to get a divorce. She went to IC, was diagnosed with minor depression and anxiety, went on meds, and started to change. We struggled the last 3 years, but she has made major changes, and we're stronger now than we have been in a decade. The problem is that I am still sad all the time. It wasn't a straight line the last 3 years, and the fight has just exhausted me. I know I'm not perfect, but I think I've been a good husband. I make 85% of the household income, which provides a very comfortable life. She drives a $115K car. I take care of our 3 kids, I cook almost every meal, I do all the grocery shopping, I coach my kids' sports teams, and I take her on dates, vacations regularly, and send her flowers randomly. I'm also pretty affectionate and compliment her all the time. I'm just so tired. And while things are better now, the smallest triggers send me into a tailspin. The latest happened this weekend. We hadn't had sex in over a week, but we're spending a night with her cousin at a beach house on Friday. It was a hard week. I was exhausted. I had a lot of errands to get done, and I was leaving on a business trip on Sunday. I really did not want to hang out with my cousin, but my wife really turned up the sexiness and kept telling me how great it would be for us to be in a quiet, remote location. So I played along and went out. I accepted her falling asleep on me all week since the weekend would be fun. Well, we go out on Friday night. My wife gets drunk and sick. Obviously, nothing happens. She is then sick all Saturday. She's a lightweight. Sunday morning, we wake up. I'm leaving in a few hours. I don't want to force the issue if she's still not feeling well, so I'm looking for clues. She proceeds to tell me all the things she needs to get done on Sunday. None of them involve me. Since I had a lot of things to do too, I read the room, got out of bed and got to work. I get done all the things I know she would worry about. About 1.5 hours before I had to leave for the airport, she tried to get intimate with me. I still haven't packed. I tell her that I don't have time now. The time was this morning, and it takes me almost the entire time to pack. I was debating about having a discussion in the car, but the kids wanted to ride along too, so we didn't. Later, I ashamedly and very passive-aggressively texted her, "I wish having sex with me was a higher priority in your life." Stupid and not helpful, but it's how I feel. I don't believe I've gotten all the answers from the time she was distant. Her answers of, "I don't remember that," or "it was a chemical imbalance," just don't help me at all. Like, she used to hate when I playfully tapped her butt. Now she loves it. Weird. I'm glad that sex is more frequent now, but I'm 47, and I can't take advantage of it now. I used to be able to go 3-4x a night. Now it's 1x or 2x after a long break. It's sad to say, but she put on a lot of weight, probably due to the medicine, and she's not as sexy as before either. I feel like we wasted our good, sexy, virile years. I hate going from great to sad to great. It's taking a toll on my emotional health. We've both done IC but no MC, but I don't see how a marriage counselor can help. I tell her everything already so she knows. It's dumb to want a divorce now when things are good. But I just can't seem to forgive her for all the hurt she put me through. And triggers remind me of that and I get so sad. I honestly don't know what to do. Is this just going to be the rest of my life? Update 4. Internet team, thank you for all the advice. I decided to bring up the firehouse issue, but the firehouse issue is a problem that is affecting our marriage now. Last night, I sat her down and said, "I am thankful for all the love you are showing me now. I can really tell that you are trying, and I am very happy that we have grown closer. However, B works at that firehouse, and I want us to not have any interaction with him ever again." She wasn't even surprised, and kind of looked disappointed in herself. She said, "I know. I didn't even realize the linkage between B and the Santa breakfast until this morning when I was driving to my massage. I feel like such an idiot." I said, "It's not just this Santa breakfast. It's wanting to message him to see how his hand is doing after he cut it and other things. All of that ends now. I don't want to hear you mention his name again, and this is non-negotiable." She said, "I understand I asked you to do the same thing for N and J, and nothing like this will ever happen again." I reminded her how instantly I cut off contact with N and J. By the way, there was nothing funny going on. They were childhood friends and part of a large friend group. My wife was uncomfortable with me being friends with them. It was an easy decision for me. I had a lot of friends. I only had one wife. She tried to say that I did have contact with them. True, but it was decades later, and it was short messages about our HS reunion. I told her that I never gave her a reason to doubt me. I showed her every message in real time. She said she would never doubt me because she trusts me. I kind of took offense to that last statement. I felt like she was saying I don't trust her. I started to remind her of being detached and all of her red flags. She said, "Can we please not bring all this up again if I just say that I was wrong and it won't happen again?" I agreed and we called it a night. All in all, I think it went all right. We are still in a good place. Yes, I still have my doubts about 2021. However, I think I might finally be able to rein them in. Lacking any new information, I am going to work on forgiveness. Thank you again for helping me sort out my feelings. Last recorded post on record.